Her face slammed into the dirt, laughter erupting around her as the sergeant's boot pressed harder between her shoulder. Blades. They called her weak, worthless, unfit to serve alongside real soldiers. The humiliation burned worse than the scrapes on her cheek. For weeks, she had endured their mockery, their cruelty, their absolute certainty that she would break. Then, in one fluid motion, everything changed. The yard fell silent as the sergeant collapsed, gasping for air. Suddenly at the mercy of the woman they had all underestimated. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more untold tales of unexpected strength. Sometimes the most powerful people are the ones no one sees coming. The morning sun beat down mercilessly on Fort Drayson military base as 42 recruits stood at attention in the dusty yard. Day 27 of the Special Operations Selection Course had arrived, and the original 100 candidates had been whittled down through brutal physical and psychological trials. Yellow stood in the back row, her slight frame nearly hidden behind the broad shoulders of the men surrounding her. She maintained an intentionally unremarkable presence, her brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her uniform slightly ill-fitting, her posture just a touch too rigid. Where the other recruits had developed a hardened camaraderie through shared suffering, Eloyne remained an outsider. Sergeant Thaddeus Blackwell paced before them, combat boots kicking up small clouds with each deliberate step, his face, weathered by multiple combat tours, settled into its natural expression of contempt as his gaze landed on Eloyne. "Attention!" he barked, unnecessarily. The recruits were already ramrod straight, except for Eloyne, who struggled to maintain proper posture. The night navigation exercise had ended just 4 hours ago. While the other recruits had been given accurate coordinates, Eloyne's map had been intentionally marked wrong, sending her through treacherous terrain before she finally found her way back to base. From the corner of her eye, Eloyne noticed Captain Silas Merrick watching from the sidelines, clipboard in hand. His presence was unusual at this stage, but she kept her focus forward as Blackwell approached. "Recruit Keir," Blackwell's voice carried across the yard. "Step forward." Yellow complied, moving with deliberate awkwardness. "Tell me, recruit." Blackwell circled her like a predator. "Why do you think you belong here?" "To serve my country, Sergeant," she replied, voice steady but quiet. Blackwell laughed, a sharp sound devoid of humor. "Your country and you think the best way to serve is by slowing down an elite unit, by demanding special treatment. I haven't asked for special treatment, Sergeant. Your presence demands it," Blackwell shouted, his face inches from hers. "Every time we have to slow down for you to catch up, every time we lower our standards to accommodate weakness." The other recruits remained silent, relief washing over their faces that someone else was a target. Only Eloyne's eyes gave away nothing. Fixed forward, deliberately empty. "This isn't some equality experiment. People," Blackwell addressed the formation. "In combat, the enemy doesn't care about your feelings. They don't care about diversity quotas. They care about exploiting weakness." He jabbed a finger toward Eloyne. "And weakness gets good men killed." Captain Merrick made a note on his clipboard, his expression unreadable. As Blackwell continued his tirade, Eloyne's mind flashed briefly to another time, a younger version of herself, watching silently from shadows as men in uniform spoke in hushed tones, a hand placing a medal in a wooden box, whispered conversations in languages few Americans could understand. She returned to the present as Blackwell announced the day's training. Close quarters combat, the perfect arena for public humiliation. The afternoon sun had reached its zenith when the recruits gathered in the combat training yard. They paired off naturally, their unofficial hierarchy, long established. No one volunteered to partner with Eloyne. Recruit Lachlan, Blackwell called. Xavier Lachlan, a former college wrestling champion with shoulders like boulders and a perpetual sneer, stepped forward. You'll be demonstrating with recruit care. The other pairs spread across the yard, leaving Eloy and Xavier conspicuously isolated near Blackwell. Today, we're practicing takedowns and control holds, Blackwell announced. Watch carefully. He demonstrated the technique on a willing recruit, explaining the proper form for safely taking down an opponent. Then he turned to Eloy and Xavier. Don't worry, Blackwell announced loudly. Women get special treatment in my course. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Lachlan, you may use maximum force. Your job is simple. Survive for 30 seconds. Captain Merrick stepped closer, his interest evident. The first takedown was brutal. Xavier drove Elian into the ground with unnecessary force. She hit with a dull thud, air rushing from her lungs. Per training, she slapped the ground to disperse the impact, but did little to soften the blow. Yellow got her feet without complaint, resuming her starting position. Xavier glanced at Blackwell, who nodded for him to continue. The second takedown was worse. Xavier swept her legs and drove her down with his full weight. Blood trickled from Eloy's lip, but her eyes remained calm, calculating. Something about that gaze made Xavier hesitate momentarily. Problem, recruit Lachlan? Blackwell barked. No, Sergeant, Xavier replied, resuming his position. Captain Merrick's eyes narrowed as he caught a micro-expression on Elo's face, something that didn't match her submissive posture. It was gone in an instant, but it troubled him. Enough playing. Blackwell stepped into the circle. Let me demonstrate a proper takedown. The recruits gathered around, their training forgotten as they anticipated the spectacle. Alone stood, calmly waiting. Sometimes trash needs to know its place, Blackwell said loudly. He grabbed Elian roughly by the collar and shoulder, driving her face into the dirt with unnecessary force. The yard filled with uncomfortable laughter as he pressed his knee into her back, grinding her face deeper into the earth. This is what happens in the real world, Blackwell lectured. No second chances, no mercy. His words cut off abruptly as Eloy's body changed beneath his grip. The shift was subtle at first, fingers twitching in a pattern that Captain Merrick recognized with sudden alarm. Sergeant, Merrick shouted, stand down. But it was too late. With serpentine speed, Eloy transformed beneath Blackwell's hold. Her movement was liquid precision as she twisted from beneath him, capturing his extended arm and using his momentum against him. Her technique revealed years of expert training as she executed a perfect counter. Within 2 seconds, she had Blackwell in a neck hold, her small frame now perfectly balanced and leveraged. The sergeant struggled, then gasped as Eloy applied targeted pressure to his carotid artery. His face reamed, then palled as she cut off. His blood flowed with clinical precision. Dead silence engulfed the yard. The recruit stood frozen, processing what they just witnessed. The woman they dismissed as weak now, controlling one of the most feared. Instructors on base with terrifying efficiency. Yellow released Blackwell just before he lost consciousness, letting him collapse to his knees, gasping for air. Her eyes, no longer vacant, scanned the yard with predatory awareness. Captain Merrick stepped forward, speaking, clearly in a language that none of the recruits understood. Nightshade protocol verified. Status. Report. Alone responded with a perfect accent. Asset secure. Evaluation. Complete. Merrick immediately stood at attention and saluted her. The gesture sent shock waves through the assembled recruits. Attention. Merrick's voice cracked like thunder across the yard. You are in the presence of Major Elian KIR, Distinguished Service Cross recipient, former Ghost Program operative, and your new commanding officer. Blackwell, still struggling to breathe, looked up in shock as Merrick continued. Major KIR wasn't a recruit. She was evaluating this program and your treatment of candidates under extreme duress. Merrick turned to the stunned recruits. This was your real test, and most of you just failed. The transformation in Eloy was complete. Her posture straightened, shoulders squaring with natural authority. The awkwardness that defined her for weeks vanished, replaced by a commanding presence that seemed to physically enlarge her in the eyes of the wrecker. Yutz! For the past 27 days. Eloin spoke for the first time in her natural voice, clear and authoritative. I have watched you, not just your physical performance or tactical decisions, but your character, how you treat others when you think no one who matters is watching. Her gaze swept across the formation, making deliberate eye contact with several recruits who had been particularly cruel. Some looked away, others stared back, faces pale, with realization. 3 of you, she continued, demonstrated the qualities we actually need in special operations. You helped others without seeking recognition. You resisted joining the mockery. You led, through example rather than intimidation. She pointed to 3 recruits scattered throughout the formation. A quiet man who had shared his water during a desert exercise, a woman who had defended a struggling teammate against ridicule, and a serious-faced recruit who had consistently put team success above personal glory. The rest of you, her voice hardened, confused cruelty for strength. You believe that stepping on others would elevate you. Xavier Lackland shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet her eyes. Special operations isn't about being the toughest or most aggressive, Elone said. It's about judgment, restraint, knowing when to use force and when not to. It's about carrying power responsibly. Captain Merritt directed the 3 selected recruits to step forward, while instructing the others to return to barracks to await further orders. As the shocked recruits dispersed, Blackwell finally found his voice. This is some kind of joke, he rasped, climbing unsteadily to his feet. You can't just do this. Sergeant Blackwell, Captain Merrick interrupted. Report to the general's office immediately. This isn't over. Blackwell hissed at Eloin as he passed. Her response was quiet, meant only for him. It was over the moment, you. Confused sadism for leadership. That evening, Eloin sat across from General Isil de Veeler in the command. Headquarters. Gone was any pretense of weakness. Eloin's posture was perfect, her gaze steady and commanding as she delivered her assessment. The program is broken, she stated. Flatly, they're creating soldiers who mistake cruelty for strength and conformity for loyalty. General Ayer nodded, silver hair catching the light. At 61, she carried her authority with effortless grace, the product of decades navigating a system that had tried at every turn to reject her. That's why we needed someone they would underestimate, Valor replied. Someone they would reveal their true nature to the window. They watched as Blackwell was escorted to a vehicle, his career effectively finished. Your evaluation confirms what we suspected. The general continued. The course has been corrupted by the wrong values. We're not just looking for physical specimens who can endure hardship. We need thinking operators with moral courage. And the candidates, Eloin asked, your recommendations? 3 showed genuine character. They helped others without seeking recognition. They resisted joining the mockery. They led through example, not intimidation. Yellow slid forward 3 files. The rest aren't ready for the responsibility of Special Operations Command. General AR studied the files. So few. Quality over quantity, Eloin replied. Always. The general studied her for a moment. 27 days of abuse. Most people would have broken character, revealed themselves. With respect, General, I've endured. Worse for longer. So I've read. Veeler tapped a classified file on her desk. And that's why you were perfect for this assignment. You understand what it means to be underestimated, to be seen as less than. You are. Elo's gaze drifted to the window, to the training grounds beyond. It can be an advantage being underestimated. People reveal who they truly are when they think you're beneath their notice. And what did you see out there? Vala asked. A culture that rewards the wrong things. Strength without wisdom. Toughness without compassion. Power without responsibility. Eloin met the general's eyes again. We can do better. Veeler nodded. Then let's begin. Dawn broke over Fort Dason, painting the eastern sky in fiery, oranges and golds. The training yard, usually filled with shouted orders and pounding feet, was quiet as the remaining recruits assembled. Major Yellow stood before them, transformed. Gone was the slouched posture and averted gaze. She wore her proper uniform now, combat, decorations visible on her chest. She stood tall, commanding respect without demanding it. The recruits remained at attention, still processing the revelation from yesterday. Most had spent a sleepless night reviewing every interaction they'd had with the woman they dismissed as weak, every cruel word spoken when they thought it didn't matter. At ease, Eloin ordered. The recruits shifted to parade rest. Eyes forward. Yesterday was difficult for many of you, she began. Finding out that your behavior was being evaluated when you thought no one was watching. She paced slowly before them, her boots whispering against the packed earth. But that's the reality of leadership. Your true character isn't revealed by how you act. When everyone is watching, it's revealed by how you treat those you perceive as having no power over you. Yellow stopped before the three recruits she had singled out yesterday. Recruit Tara. She addressed the woman who had defended a teammate. Why did you stand up for Recruit Emerson when Sergeant Blackwell was berating him? Tahira swallowed hard. Because it was wrong, ma'am. Emerson was injured, not lazy. He needed medical attention, not humiliation. Yellow nodded. And did you know I was watching? No, ma'am. Did you think there would be any benefit to you? No, ma'am. I thought I might get targeted next. Yet you acted anyway, Eloin noted. That's moral courage. She moved to the quiet man who had shared his water. Recruit. Dario, during the desert exercise, you gave half your water to Recruit Chin, even though it meant you might not have. Enough. Yes, ma'am. Why? Dario's voice was soft but steady. He was showing signs of heat exhaustion. Ma'am, the mission fails if any team member falls. A pragmatic answer. Yellow nodded. But I noticed you took the risk on yourself, rather than ordering another recruit to share their water. It wasn't their responsibility, ma'am. It was mine. I saw the problem. Yellow smiled slightly. Leadership. She moved to the third. Recruit whose serious face rarely revealed emotion. And Recruit Farron. Throughout this course, you've consistently put the team's success above personal glory. When Lachlan took credit for your strategy during the bridge exercise, you said nothing. Farah's jaw tightened. The mission succeeded, ma'am. That was what mattered. But now Yellow impressed. Now I wish I confronted him. Farron admitted, not for credit, but because his attitude endangered future missions. Self-awareness and growth, Eloin nodded. Also essential, she addressed the entire group again. Leadership isn't a privilege. It's a responsibility to those under your command. Your task isn't to break people. It's to build them up to be stronger than they believed possible. Yellow knelt down and picked up a handful of dirt, letting it filter through her fingers. The ground doesn't care who you are or where you came from, she said. What matters is whether you have the strength to rise when they throw you down. She straightened up, brushing the dirt from her hands. 3 of you will continue to the Special Operations Qualification course. The rest are being reassigned. She scanned their faces, not as punishment, but as redirection. Some of you have potential, but need to re-examine your understanding of strength and leadership. In the background, General Wheeler watched from the same spot where Captain Merrick had stood yesterday. Her expression was satisfied as she observed Elowin in her element. After dismissing most of the recruits, Eloin approached the 3 who remained. The Real training begins now, she told them, and it starts with understanding that the strongest teams are built on trust, not fear. As they followed her toward the headquarters building, Recruit gathered her courage to ask the question on all their minds. Major, Kier, if I may, how did you endure it? All those weeks of being treated like that. She couldn't finish the sentence. Elo's paced in slow. I've had plenty of practice being underestimated. Recruit, in our line of work, that can be an advantage. But the physical abuse, the humiliation. Yellow stopped and turned to face them. There's a difference between enduring hardship for a purpose and suffering. Abuse because someone enjoys inflicting it. What happened in this course crossed that line. That's why I was sent to evaluate it. She resumed walking. Remember that difference when you lead others. Push them to their limits. Yes, but never forget the purpose behind the pain. As they entered the building, the morning sun illuminated the training yard behind them, empty now, but soon to be filled with a new approach to creating the leaders the military truly needed. Captain Merrick was waiting for them in the briefing room, a space usually reserved for senior officers. Maps covered one wall. A tactical display table dominated the center, and chairs were positioned around it. The message was clear. These recruits were being treated as equals, not subordinates. Please sit. Merrick gestured to the chairs. Major Carwell, explain your next steps. Eloyne remained standing, studying each of them carefully before speaking. What I'm about to tell you is classified, she began. The operation you've been selected for isn't standard special forces training. It's part of a broader initiative to reshape our special operations capabilities from the inside out. She activated the tactical display, bringing up images of training facilities across the country. For the past 3 years, we've been concerned about a shift in our special operations culture. Too many units have developed toxic leadership patterns, emphasis on physical toughness at the expense of ethical decision-making, blind loyalty over moral courage. These problems have led to incidents in the field that we cannot tolerate. The display shifted to show redacted after-action reports, incidents where special operations teams at cross lines made poor decisions, abused power. General Wheeler has been tasked with implementing a complete overhaul of how we select, train, and develop special operators. Fort Drayson is one of 8 facilities being evaluated. Recruit Dario leaned forward, and the evaluations are being conducted by officers posing as recruits. Yes, officers specifically, chosen because they don't fit the stereotypical special operator profile. Women, smaller-built men, those who appear physically unimposing but possess exceptional skills and judgment. Recruit Farah's eyes widened with understanding. You wanted to see how the training cadre and other recruits treated those they perceived as weak. Exactly, Eloyne. Confirmed. Because how we treat the vulnerable reveals far more about our character than how we treat the powerful. Tahira looked troubled. Sergeant Blackwell. What happens to him? He's being reassigned. Captain Merrick answered, along with several other instructors whose methods crossed the line, from challenging to abusive. But he's decorated, Farron said. Multiple combat tours. Being good at killing does make someone a good leader, Yellow replied. Too often we confuse the two. She switched off the display and finally took her seat at the table. The three of you are being offered a choice. Continue to the qualification course as planned or join our reform initiative. Help us identify and develop the right kind of leadership within special operations. The recruits exchanged glances absorbing the magnitude of what they were being offered. With respect, ma'am, Dario asked, why us? We're not even qualified. Yet, because you showed the qualities we need when you thought no one who mattered was watching, Yellow replied. That's the purest test of character I know. What exactly will we be doing? Tahira questioned. Captain Merrick took over. Initially, you complete an accelerated qualification course. Then, you be assigned to teams as junior operators, but with a second dairy mission to observe and report on team dynamics and leadership. Later, you might take on roles similar to Major Kerr's. Undercover evaluations, Farron asked. Among other duties, Merrick nodded. Yellow watched their reactions carefully. This is an easy path. You'd be operating in gray areas, building relationships with people you're also evaluating. It requires exceptional emotional intelligence and ethical clarity. The three recruits fell silent, considering the implications. You don't have to decide now, Eloin said, standing again. Take 24 hours. This is not an order. It's an invitation. She moved toward the door, then paused. Whatever you choose, remember what you witnessed yesterday. Power reveals. When someone gains authority over others, their true character emerges. Make sure yours is something you can live with. Later that afternoon, Eloin found herself in the base gymnasium, working through a series of precise combat forms. The physical movement helped clear her mind, process the events of recent weeks. The door opened and General Wheeler entered. She watched in silence for several minutes before speaking. Impressive form, she noted, different from standard military training. Yellow completed the sequence before responding. My father taught me, before he died. The legendary Colonel Keir. Fairlar nodded. One of the finest operators this country ever produced, though few know his name. He preferred it that way. Like daughter, like father. Observed. The assessment reports are coming in from the other bases. Similar patterns everywhere. Yellow reached for a towel, wiping sweat from her face. We've been selecting for the wrong attributes, rewarding the wrong behaviors. Can it be fixed? Yes, Eloin said without hesitation. But it will take time, and it will be met with resistance. From where? From those who benefited from the old system. The ones who mistake cruelty for strength, obedience for loyalty, fear for respect. Wheeler sighed. They have powerful allies, some who believe special operations should be exempt from standard ethical constraints. All the more reason to continue, Eloin replied, before we create monsters we can't control. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Captain Merrick entered, his expression troubled. What is it? Wheeler asked. Sergeant Blackwell has filed a formal complaint. Claims the evaluation was rigged. That Major Keir provoked him. Deliberately. Alone laughed softly. By what? Appearing weak. He has supporters. Merrick warned, including Colonel Ray. The name hung in the air like a storm cloud. Colonel Victor Ray, commander of the 7th Special Operations Group, and known for his old-school brutal approach to training. Let me guess. Yellow, said Ray, is claiming this reform initiative is compromising combat effectiveness, prioritizing feelings over lethality. Almost word for word, Merrick confirmed. General AAR's expression hardened. Then, we proceed exactly as planned. If Ray wants to defend instructors who abuse their power, that only proves our point. She turned to Eloin. This was never going to be easy, Major. Those who mistake cruelty for strength rarely surrender power willingly. Eloin nodded, her resolve unshaken. Good thing we're not asking for their permission. The sun was setting as Eloin left the gymnasium. In the distance, she could see the 3 recruits walking together deep in conversation, making their decision, perhaps, whatever they chose. Something had shifted at Fort Dason, a small crack in a system that had gone unchallenged for too long. The real work was just beginning. But for the first time in years, Eloin felt genuine hope for the future of special operations. In her mind, she could almost hear her father's voice. The strongest warriors aren't those who never fall. They're the ones who rise from the dirt again, and again with their humanity intact. The following morning arrived with a sense of expectation hanging in the air. Yellow stood at the window of her office, watching the sun climb above the distant mountains. Behind her, a gentle knock sounded on the door. Enter, she called, turning to face the door. The 3 recruits filed in, standing at attention before her desk. Tahira, Dario, and Farron. Their expressions were serious but determined. At ease, Eloin said, taking her seat. I assume you've reached a decision. We have, ma'am. Tahira spoke for the group. We want to join the initiative. Yellow studied them carefully, looking for any hesitation. Are you certain this won't be easy? With respect, Major, from replied, none of U.S. joined special operations because it was easy. That brought a small smile to Eloin's face. Fair point. But I want to make sure you understand what you're signing up for. This isn't just about physical challenges or combat skills. You'll be navigating complex ethical territory, often without clear guidelines. That's why we agreed, Dario said quietly. After what we witnessed with Sergeant Blackwell, it's clear the current system is broken. If we want to be part of something we can believe in, we need to help rebuild it. Yellow nodded, satisfied with their reasoning. Very well. Your accelerated qualification training begins today. Captain Merrick will oversee the tactical portions. I'll personally handle your preparation for the evaluation aspects of your future roles. She rose and extended her hand to each of them in turn. Welcome to Ghost Reform. As they shook hands, the office door opened without a knock. Colonel Victor Ray strode in, his tall figure dominating the small space. His eyes narrowed at the scene before him. Recruits dismissed, he barked. The three looked to Eloin, who gave them a slight nod. They filed out, casting concerned glances back as they left. When the door closed, Ra turned his cold gaze on Eloin. Major, I understand you've been playing dress-up as a recruit, following orders, Colonel, conducting an authorized evaluation, by humiliating one of our most decorated instructors. Rather's voice was dangerously soft. Yellow met his gaze. Without flinching, Sergeant Blackwell humiliated himself through his own actions. I merely revealed them. You provoked him by appearing weak. If that's all it takes to provoke an instructor into abuse, then we have a serious problem with our selection standards. Rather's jaw tightened. You don't understand what we do here. Special operations isn't a democracy or a sensitivity training seminar. We break people down and rebuild them, because that's what's required in the field. I understand exactly what we do here. Colonel, Yellow replied, her voice cold. 14 years in the field, 11 combat, deployments for as team leader. I've put more operators in the ground than you've trained. That gave Ree the pause. He reassessed the woman before him. KIR, he said, recognition dawning. You're Marcus Keir's daughter. I am. Your father understood what it takes. He wouldn't approve of this soft approach to training. Elo's expression hardened. My father believed that true. Strength comes from discipline, not cruelty, from moral courage, not blind obedience. He will be the first to tell you that if you need to break someone's spirit to control them, you've already failed as a leader. Rather studied her for a long moment, then changed tactics. General AR may have the Pentagon's EA. R, right now, but this reform initiative won't last. When the next conflict escalates, when they need operators who can do what normal soldiers can't, they'll come back to men like me. Perhaps, Eloin acknowledged, but until then, we'll be training the next generation our way. Your 3 pet recruits won't change anything. They're just the beginning, Colonel. Yellow smiled slightly. And unlike you, I'm playing the long game. Ray the turn to leave, then pause at the door. Blackwell's career is finished. I hope you're proud of yourself. Blackwell ruined his own career the moment he decided that abusing his authority made him a better leader. Eloin's voice was steady. Actions have consequences, Colonel, even for men like you. After Reu left, Eloin took a moment to compose herself. The confrontation had been inevitable, but that didn't make it any less unpleasant. Men like Wraith represented exactly the kind of leadership the Reform Initiative sought to replace. Dominating rather than inspiring, controlling rather than empowering. Her thoughts were interrupted by another knock. Captain Merrick entered, concern evident on his face. I passed Ray in the hallway, he said. He looked ready to tear someone apart. Just establishing boundaries. Eloin replied, he won't be a problem. He has allies throughout the command structure. So do we, Eloin reminded him. And more importantly, we have momentum. The Secretary of Defense is personally invested in this initiative after the incidents last year. Merrick nodded, then checked his watch. The training schedule is set for our 3 recruits. We should join them. As they walked toward the specialized training facility, Merrick asked the question that had been on his mind since yesterday. The hold you used on Blackwell, that wasn't standard military training. Yellow glanced at him. No, it wasn't. Care to share where you learned? She considered for a moment. My father trained with various special units around the world. He brought home techniques that weren't in any official manual. Effective techniques, Merrick noted. Very. But what made my father special wasn't his fighting skills. It was his judgment about when to use them. She paused. That's what we need to instill in the next generation. Not just how to be lethal, but when to be lethal, and more importantly, when not to be. They arrived at the training facility to find their 3 recruits already waiting, dressed in workout clothes, eager to begin their accelerated program. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of intensive training, while the standard qualification course stretched over 6 months. Eloy and Merrick condensed the essential components into a fraction of that time. They focused not just on physical skills and tactical knowledge, but on the ethical framework that would guide their decisions. Each day brought new challenges. Morning sessions covered advanced combat techniques, marksmanship, and tactical planning. Afternoons were dedicated to role-playing scenarios that tested their judgment and observation skills. Evenings involved discussions about leadership, philosophy, and the psychology of power. Through it all, Eloy pushed them harder than Blackwell ever had, but with a crucial difference. Her demands were purposeful, never arbitrary. Her criticism was specific and constructive, never personal or humiliating. She demonstrated that it was possible to maintain the highest standards without breaking people's spirits. On the final day of their accelerated training, Eloy brought them to a secluded clearing in the woods beyond the base perimeter. A simple stone marker stood there, partially hidden by vegetation. This is where my father trained me, she explained, away from official eyes and institutional limitations. The 3 gathered around the marker, which bore only a simple inscription: True strength protects. My father believed that power without compassion becomes tyranny. Eloy continued that the strongest warriors aren't those who dominate others, but those who protect them. She looked at each of them in turn. Tomorrow you'll receive your official qualifications and your first assignments. You'll be placed on different teams under different commanders. Some may share our vision. Others, like Colonel Wraith, most definitely will not. How do we navigate that? Tahira asked. By remembering why we're doing this, Eloy answered, not to punish or expose, but to transform, to create a special operations community that values moral courage as highly as physical courage. And when we encounter resistance, Dario asked. You'll encounter resistance, Eloy corrected him, from those who benefit from the old ways, from those who mistake cruelty for effectiveness, from those who fear change. And how do we handle that resistance? Fair and pressed? Eloy smiled. The same way I handle Sergeant Blackwell. You appear to yield until the moment comes to stand firm. You let them underestimate you. And when they reveal who they truly are, you make sure the right people are watching. The next morning dawned clear and bright. In the base headquarters, General Wheeler presided over a small private ceremony. The 3 recruits stood at attention as she pinned their qualification badges on their uniforms. Ordinarily, this would be a more public affair, the general explained. But given your future assignments, we're keeping your specific qualifications confidential. She stepped back, regarding them proudly. What you're about to undertake requires exceptional courage, not just the physical kind that all operators must possess, but the moral kind that is far more rare. You'll be operating in gray areas, making difficult judgments, often without clear guidance. The general handed each of them a sealed envelope. These contain your assignments. You'll be deploying separately to different units. On paper, you're simply newly qualified operators. In reality, you're the vanguard of the most important reform in special operations history. After the ceremony, Eloin met with each of them privately to review their assignments and address any final concerns. Tahira would join a team in the Pacific Theater. Dario was headed to a European unit. Farron would remain STA. Tezide, assigned to a team currently under scrutiny for concerning patterns of behavior. When the briefings were complete, they gathered one last time in Eloin's office. I know you're nervous, she told them. That's appropriate. This is uncharted territory. But remember, you were chosen because you already demonstrated the qualities we need when you thought no one was watching. Will we be in contact with you? Tahira asked. There are secure channels in place, Eloin confirmed. But they're for emergencies only. For the most part, you'll be on your own. What if we fail? Dario's question hung in the air. Yellow considered it carefully. There are different kinds of failure. Failing to perfectly assess a situation. Failing to immediately change a toxic culture. Those are expected. The only true failure will be compromising your integrity to fit in. She looked at each of them in turn. Remember the moment in the training yard when Blackwell had me face down in the dirt, when everyone was laughing, certain of their power. That moment exists in every toxic environment. Your job isn't to win every battle. It's to recognize those moments and make sure they have consequences. As they prepared to leave, Farron asked one final question. Major Carr, do you really believe we can change an entire culture? Yellow smiled. I believe that cultures change one decision, one leader, one moment at a time. We aren't trying to change everything overnight. We're planting seeds that will grow into the future we want to see. Later that evening, after the three had departed for their assignments, Eloin met with General Wheeler one last time before her own new deployment. Are they ready? The general asked. As ready as they can be? Yellow replied. The real test will come in the field. And you? Are you ready for your next assignment? Yellow nodded. The general had asked her to take on the most challenging environment of all, Colonel Rather's own 7th Special Operations Group. She would be operating directly under the man who opposed everything they were trying to accomplish. It won't be easy, Wheeler warned. Rather will be watching for any sign of your true purpose. Let him watch, Eloin said confidently. The advantage of being underestimated is that people reveal themselves to you. They show you who they truly are when they think you're beneath their notice. Just be careful, Wheeler cautioned. Men, like Ray, don't surrender power willingly. With respect, General, I'm not asking for his permission. Yellow smiled slightly. And I've had plenty of practice rising from the dirt. As she left the office, Eloin thought about the 3 recruits, now operators, heading to their assignments, about the others, being trained at 7 other facilities across the country, about the future they were working to create. It wouldn't be easy. Change never was, especially when those in power benefited from the status quo. But as her father had taught her long ago, sometimes the most powerful position was on your knees in the dirt, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to rise. Have you ever known someone who never asked for recognition, but deserved more than anyone